APC filed its response to the petitions challenging the victory of its candidate Bola Tinubu as winner of the 2023 presidential election. APC says Peter Obi was not a valid Labour Party candidate when he emerged as a candidate of the party. And the politics of the leadership of the 10th National Assembly heats up as agitation for zoning is now prevalent, and zoning issues are also generating agitation in Kogi State ahead of the governorship election in November this year. Hello everyone and welcome to you. This is Politics Today live on Channels Television. I'm Sean Kimbaloye in Abuja. So much to talk about tonight, so there's no time wasting and no dull moment at all in every inch of the 1.5 hours that will be on this program tonight. First and foremost, let's get into your political roundup stories.
Good evening. I am Kayla Megwa, and these are your political roundup stories for today. President Muhammadu Buhari has departed Nigeria for the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia on an official visit and expected to return on April the 19th. This is probably regarded as his last trip to the kingdom as president, during which he will perform Umrah, the Lesser Hajj. The president is accompanied by his aides. The Lagos State Governorship National and State House of Assembly Election Petition Tribunal says it has received a total of 48 petitions in respect of the 2023 elections held on February the 25th and March the 11th. A breakdown of the petitions as obtained by the Secretariat shows that 4 petitions were filed to challenge the governorship elections held in the state on March 11, 2023. Those who filed are the People's Democratic Party PDP and its candidate Abdulaziz Adediran, as well as the Labour Party governorship candidate Badebo Rhodes Viva, who filed as a sole petitioner. Others are the Allied People's Movement and the Action People's Party. The Independent National Electoral Commission INEC has presented a certificate of return to Yobe State Deputy Governor-elect Idi Barde Gubana in Abuja after returning from Saudi Arabia on a Lesser Hajj exercise. Presenting the certificate, the National Electoral Commissioner supervising Bauchi, Yobe and Gombe states, General Mohammed Al-Kali retired, said the presentation of the certificate was statutory in accordance with Section 72 of the Electoral Act, which mandated INEC to issue certificates of return to winners within 14 days after the election. Rivers State Governor Nyesom Wike has defended the continued protest by members of the People's Democratic Party in Rivers State at the INEC office in Port Harcourt as not being abnormal. The PDP members have been occupying the roads leading to the office for a week to demand a joint inspection of electoral materials, among others. Governor Wike, during a media chat in Port Harcourt, also spoke on his expectation from the new leadership of the PDP and his stand on the battle for the leadership of the 10th National Assembly.
If they are barricaded and the INEC will not work, INEC will have been an alarm. We can go to office. But INEC has not done that, which shows INEC is doing their work. All
is now set for the supplementary election in 4 local government areas in Niger State. The resident electoral commissioner of INEC in the state, Mr. Ahmed Garki, at a stakeholders meeting at the commission office in Minna, the state capital, says the supplementary election will be held in Agai, Agwara, Rafi, and Rijau local government areas of the state, as the exercise will be carried out in 11 registration areas across 15 polling units. While acknowledging the role of all stakeholders who participated in the last election, Mr. Garki called for more collaboration from everyone involved to ensure a credible outing. Meanwhile, the police in Niger State says it's ready to provide security during and after the election. And in Adamawa State, a group of concerned youth in the state are appealing to the Independent National Electoral Commission INEC to ensure a seamless, credible and violent-free governorship supplementary election in Adamawa on Saturday, 15th April 2023. The group made this appeal during a media briefing in Yola, the Adamawa state capital, ahead of Saturday's rerun in the state. According to the group, those in the affected polling units should put away religious or ethnic sentiments and ensure a violent-free process. The newly appointed caretaker committee chairman of the People's Democratic Party in Katsina State, Mr. Abdurrahman Usman, has promised to reconcile all aggrieved members of the State Working Committee who were recently dissolved by the party's National Working Committee. Mr. Usman, who was speaking at the handing over ceremony from the outgoing chairman of the party, Lawal Maga Didambachi, promises to reposition the party. Personnel of the Plateau State Police Command have continued to occupy the premises of the State House of Assembly, preventing lawmakers from gaining access to the hallowed chambers in order to prevent security breach that could lead to a breakdown of law and order. At a media chat with journalists in Jos, the Plateau State Commissioner of Police, Mr. Bartholomew Onyeka, explains that the continuous closure of the State House of Assembly was based on intelligence reports of threats to lives and properties. A coalition of civil society organizations is asking the National Assembly to zone the leadership of the 10th National Assembly to the North Central region to bring a balance in the affairs of the country. The spokesperson for the coalition, Mr. Romanus Azubike, told journalists at a press conference in Abuja that neutrality of power is important for governance. Those are the political roundup stories for today. It's back to you, Shim.
Thank you so much, everyone, for staying with us. So we're getting some responses now based on the petitions, about 5 now that we know, on the presidential election and the Presidential Election Petition Tribunal. The All Progressives Congress, APC, is now asking the Election Petition Tribunal to dismiss the petition filed by the presidential candidate of the Labour Party, Mr. Peter Obi. APC faulted the petition on many grounds. It also challenged the court's jurisdiction to hear the petition on the grounds that it is, among others, incompetent. Among APC grounds for challenging the competence of the petition are that Mr. Obi was not a valid member of the Labour Party as at the time of the election. Well, on the other hand, because, you know, in all of these cases, INEC is usually joined in the suit because INEC is a party as the arbiter or as the mediator in that sense, as the umpire. So the Independent National Electoral Commission, in his own response, has said that electronic collation of election result is not mandatory. INEC says that this response to a petition by the Action People's Party is necessary before the Presidential Election Petition Court in Abuja. The APP has challenged the result of the 2023 presidential election, which declared the APC candidate Bola Tinubu as the winner on the grounds of alleged substantial non-compliance with the electoral laws of Nigeria, as well as the breach of INEC guidelines. INEC, through one of his lawyers, Mr. Abubakar Mahmood, senior advocate of Nigeria and a former president of the Nigerian Bar Association, has insisted that it conducted free and fair polls on the 25th of February. And these are the issues that have been brought before the commission, before the petition tribunal, which will commence sitting in earnest very soon in the coming days. Now, a lot of these issues have been brought up, which, of course, the ruling and the positions of the tribunal, and if it goes on to the Supreme Court, we have a far-reaching implication and lessons on our electoral process and, in fact, the electoral law. Let's get some perspectives on what these means, these petitions, without necessarily having to touch on what the honorable justices, the judges will be discussing or the lawyers will be arguing in court. We're looking at some of the issues that have been raised by this matter. I have a very senior lawyer and also a very experienced official of the Independent National Electoral Commission. In fact, he is the former Director of Voter Education and Publicity at INEC, Mr. Oluwole Osaze Uzi. Thank you so much, Mr. Osaze Uzi. It's good to see you again. After the long...
It's been a while. You keep saying Director of Voter Education. I was also Director of Legal Services. You have brought me here to
But that was your last... But that was your last assignment.
Not my first, but my last, yes.
Very much, it's good. I mean, your competence is not in doubt at all. And, respect to your years of service and experience. Thank you so much indeed for taking time out to do this for us. Well, as a lawyer, how would you describe this time in our political and electoral history?
Well, it is we live in interesting times. A lot of controversies were raised as a result of the conduct of the elections. Certain things were being, the revolution brought about by the change in law, in the injection of technology into the process, it's in the front burners. What is the effect of the deployment of technology? Don't forget that in 2015, the issues of the card reader, that was not the first time, but that was the time that it was at the forefront. So the card reader came in. What is the legality? What effect will they have if it's complied with? Then we had the Court of Appeal and the judgments of the tribunals. which went one way, but the Supreme Court, in its wisdom, went the other way about the deployment of the card reader, its use and its effect. Then came the Electoral Act of 2022, and much more usage and injection of technology was brought into the process and into the legal regime. So things are new. Some of the cases that were binding on the courts and on the commission will no longer bind the commission because law has changed. So with the changes in the law, what will be the position of compliance, non-compliance with those statutory provisions? Those are some of the issues being thrown up in these time as we go into the next phase. We've done the elections, we've done the pre-election, we've done the election stage. Now it's the post-election, is the dispute resolution mechanism by way of petition brought into the system by law. That's the stage we're at now.
It's an interesting stage, isn't it, very much? And there's a lot of pressure being put on the judiciary right now. Is it unexpected?
I wouldn't say so, but not just right now. The pressure started in the pre-election stage. I think we've been here a couple of times, and we told you that the last count, if I remember correctly, more than 700 pre-election cases were filed in the Federal High Court, and almost all, without exception, went on to the Court of Appeal, and there's still quite a number pending in the Supreme Court. Some have been determined. There's still quite a number pending in the Supreme Court. And in between now, we've have the election petitions. A lot of those ones dealt with pre-election issues, intra-party issues, arising mainly out of the primaries of the political parties. So it was intra-party between the political parties themselves. Now we've gotten to a stage where it is inter-party between the winning party, if you so use that word, and then those other parties that lost out in the election. And in all of these, whether pre-election or post-election, INEC is a party, mandatory party in all these proceedings.
I don't know. I think in 2011 or 2015, we saw maybe the highest number of petitions that came out of the presidential. I can't remember. But it does look to me that that scenario is playing out. You saw how many petitions in Lagos alone.
That's right.
And I'm not sure INEC has come out to announce how many petitions, 5 officially that we know on the presidential election, yes, against the victory of Bola Tinubu. I mean, what does the number of petitions and the challenge, going to court, what is the implication on our electoral process? Does it have any implication? Well, does it say anything? Because there's those who argue that, look, I mean, when the process is smooth, foolproof of fraud and manipulation, there is a tendency that people will not challenge it.
That's one school of thought. And yes, a lot of people believe that the better, more credible election is the less likelihood that it will be challenged. There are those who believe so, and that may be so, but we don't have any scientific basis for putting that forward. But it's just a belief that a lot of people share. But it depends on the players, active players, and whether they feel wrongly done by what INEC has done or not done, as the case may be. And don't forget, INEC has not come up with the total number of petitions yet, because I don't think it knows. I don't think it has been said with all the petitions. And you have to remind viewers that these are the petitions arising out of the presidential and National Assembly elections. There's still time within which the state assembly elections will also come in, and a lot, I expect a deluge in that one, a lot more. And then there's still the governorship petitions as well. So yes, it's a busy time for the tribunals, it's a busy time for the courts. Court of Appeal sitting as the presidential tribunal, sitting to hear the presidential tribunal, full complement, and then the Supreme Court will also hear the presidential election petitions arising therefrom, and also the governorship elections will ultimately end up in the Supreme Court. All of that will stop in the National Assembly, and state assemblies will stop in the Court of Appeal.
Give us a sense of what stands out to you. I mean, let's look at the issues now that have been presented in some of these issues. Which of these issues really stand out for you that you think that it's of importance and need to be critically looked into?
Well, quite honestly, all are important. All are quite important. I tell you why I say that. Imo, for example, in the current governor's petition, I wouldn't say people didn't take it seriously, but people had forgotten about it. They thought the main challenge were from those people who came first and second. They thought the main challenge Wonsu of the APP then, Mr. Wonsu, was the main challenger because he came second. He was runner up to Ihedioha. So a lot of people were concentrating more on those ones and think when the thing where those petitions were disposed of, say, oh, that's it. Not knowing that somebody who came fourth might also have a successful petition, as it turned out it happened. What stands out? A lot of things stand out. So we cannot rule out anything at all. But one, what is the effect of technology? What role did it play? Is it mandatory? What is the effect when there's non-compliance with the IREV? And people don't realize that different processes, not just the IREV, people concentrate more on the IREV, but the IREV is actually just one stage in that collation process. As you said in your opener, is there INEC saying, or maybe the process known to law is the manual collation. Is that correct? These are all the issues the courts will have to sieve through. There's the issue of the vice presidential candidate, taking the Peter Obi petition. The issue of the vice presidential candidate. Can you be, well, Section 35 of the Electoral Act says you cannot be nominated for 2 different constituencies or by 2 different political parties. Those are things are clear. And it is alleged that the vice presidential candidate, Shetima, was nominated for 2 different constituencies. One, the Central District in Borno, and the second one is the presidential constituency. The whole of Nigeria is one constituency, and his Central District in Borno is another constituency. You cannot be nominated at the same time for the same election for 2 constituencies. So the issue is that
the electoral law says in that area says Section 35. It says where a candidate knowingly allows himself to be nominated by more than one political party or in more than one constituency, his nomination shall be void. So which of the, because there are 2 nominations that are involved, is it the earlier one or the latter one? It's not explicitly stated here.
Yeah, there are two angles to it. One, have you been nominated by 2 political parties? That's not the allegation. That's the first one. The second one, there are 2 issues there. Second complaint is that have you been nominated for 2 different constituencies? And from what I've seen in the media, from the petitions, they attached the nomination form as a senatorial candidate. And we also know that it was returned as a vice presidential candidate. So that is the issue the tribunal will have to sieve through. That's another very important issue. But the issue is this. I think I've seen some of the issues being canvassed, and part of the defense is this. If he withdrew before his nomination, the tribunal will now have to look at it. Does that apply or it doesn't apply? If he has withdrawn, successfully withdrew from the senatorial election, then could he be nominated for the vice presidential? Probably so. So now it's a question of proof. You cannot be nominated for both positions at the same time. So were you able to, can you show that, yes, I was nominated for the senatorial district election, but I withdrew before I submitted the form as a vice presidential candidate, not forgetting that there was a placeholder. What now has become called a placeholder.
The politicians have brought it
was there an overlap, or there was a distinction? There was a distinct time frame between his withdrawal and, again, you also have to prove that he was nominated for the central district as well. So these are some of the issues that
the issue exactly that the lawyers need to argue is whether or not there are valid 2 valid nominations by the same political party at the same time with INEC. And those who also argue...
Not 2 political parties.
No, 1. The law says by more than 1 political party.
That is 1, but that's not the case. It's the second, I read that, the second aspect of it.
Yeah.
For 2 different constituencies.
By more than 1 political party or in more than 1 constituency.
That's the bit that happening. Not the first one.
So there are 2 scenarios played in that section alone.
Yes, in that section.
2 scenarios. Yes. Nomination by 2 political parties.
That's correct.
And nominations by 1 political party, but in 2 constituencies.
Correct.
So, but the lawyers need to prove whether or not there are 2 nominations that are valid at the same time.
That's correct.
But people will argue that, look, is the onus not on INEC to take action when such thing? This is not the first time we've seen. In the case of Atiku Abubakar, he was already a governorship candidate in Adamawa State.
He was not a candidate.
He was elected, yes, actually.
Elected governor.
In the case of Goodluck Jonathan, in Bayelsa, before he came to be the running mate of the late President Yaradua. Yes. So we've seen this kind of scenario, but this was a pre-election issue. This was not an election. I mean, this didn't happen after the election.
No, we need to explain those. They're not the same. In the case of Atiku Abubakar won the election. First of all, there was no constitution in existence at that time. After the reconstitution, after the establishment of INEC met with political associations and said, look, what's the roadmap? How do we move forward? And it was agreed at those meetings, that meeting, that look, okay, we will not, there's no constitution in place. So there has to be a legal framework to guide us. So they agreed that each election will have a separate decree, because under military rule, to guide the process. And that's exactly what was done in that case. There was a decree 17, which established INEC. And then there was a decree for local government elections, which was conducted by INEC. There was a decree for state assembly elections. There was a decree for national, and there was a decree for governorship presidential elections. So each one had, in this particular case, so under the decree for governorship election, Atiku Abubakar was nominated and won the election as governor of Adamawa State.
Yeah.
Now, the issue was that could he also be, and later on, President Obasanjo took him as his vice presidential candidate. And the court case went to court, by the way. What should happen to the seat he was vacating as governor? And A.B. Mahmood, the former president of the NBA, who is handling this on behalf of INEC, represented INEC in that case where INEC was taken to court over who should be, what should happen. Should his deputy just step in, or should there be a by-election and everything else? The case went all the way to Supreme Court, and Supreme Court said no, the deputy can't step in. That's how that was resolved. So that's a slightly different. First of all, the law was different, and it's different from now.
So this was a development
subsequent development. Then in Bayelsa case, it's similar to this, but the difference was that you, as a governor, you can contest any position. As a senator, the deputy senate president contested the governorship of Delta State, for example. The law doesn't forbid that. You are nominated, you are cleared, you have already been elected. As an elected official, you can contest any other position you so choose. That's possible as well.
So interesting scenario playing out. But the issue of Section 838 of the INEC guidelines, which has caused a lot of furore now, as we're seeing, the electronic transmission of result. So it says, on completion of all the polling units voting and result procedures, the presiding officer shall, and one, electronically transmit or transfer the result of the polling unit direct to the collation system as prescribed by the commission. 2, use the beavers to upload a scanned copy of the Form EC8A to the INEC result viewing portal IREV as prescribed by the commission. 3, take the beavers and the original copy of each of the forms in temper evident envelope to the registration area and ward collation officer in the company of security agents. The polling agents may accompany the presiding officer to the RA ward collation center. Correct. Those are the provisions of so some people will ask the validity of the INEC regulation, or how strong in the body of our laws. There's a constitution, there's the electoral law, and the INEC regulation. Give us a sense of what this means altogether.
Yes, there's a hierarchy of laws. Absolutely. And of course, as you rightly pointed out, the constitution is supreme. The constitution says so, it is supreme. All other laws, guidelines, regulations derive their strength, their authority, their existence to the constitution. It's the ground norm, it's the fountain of all other laws. And so because of that, the importance of that is that if it has made provision for cover the field, if it has made provision, no other law can try to expand it, except the constitution says you can expand these powers, for example. No other law can do that. Next to it is an statute, the acts of the National Assembly, because it's presumed that the National Assembly is elected by the people. So they are the people's representatives. They make laws for the country, assented to by the president, who's also elected. Then you have regulations and guidelines. Regulations and guidelines are made by people who generally are not elected. They're parts of the executive. They are appointed. So INEC, for example, is composed of appointed people. Nobody in INEC is elected. So that being so, they are not direct representatives of the people. So any regulation, any legal instrument they make is subservient to that made by the representatives of the people, which is the National Assembly. So in the hierarchy, there should be no conflict between it, regulations, guidelines made by the commission or any executive body. There should be no conflict with the statute, which is a superior instrument. There should be no conflict. And then below guidelines and regulations, you have, because guidelines are bylaws, you cannot conflict with the substantive, with the major law. Then you have manuals and other procedural instruments that the commission can use.
But how solid is the regulation? Because this section that I read out, and including section 48 of the regulation, because INEC prepare a regulation ahead of every election, I assume that there is except if there is a need for changes in it, but there is a regulation of 2022 which was supposed to guide the operation of the election of 2023. How solid and how solid can these regulations stand because of the controversy that have been generated? Is INEC mandated? Because INEC has, in its position at the petition, I said, look, it's not mandatory for us to have done what you are asking us to do. The IREF was supposed to be a subsidiary.
No, that is editor's choice. We have to be very careful about that. You have to quote what INEC said.
Absolutely.
And a lot of what I have seen are editor's language. Now, so while you're looking for that, let me explain.
No, go ahead, please.
Good. So you see, this issue is that, what is the effect of it? The Electoral Act says this procedure for collation should be left to INEC. As empowered INEC, you transmit results as the INEC provides. So it has left INEC with a, discretion. And with that discretion, INEC has now made regulations to say, how do we determine this? They've now made the regulations. That's why you say paragraph 38 and 48 of the guidelines, amongst other provisions of the guidelines, are supposed to guide these issues. I think section 60, subsection 2, makes issues of leaving the discretion to INEC about how things should be dealt with.
Of the Constitution, right?
No, of the Electoral Act.
Yeah.
I think it's
section 60, right?
I believe it's section 60. Now, they say that to be transmitted, 60 check subsection 5
Counting of
thereof.
votes, recount post-election.
To transfer results in the manner prescribed, section 60 subsection 5. Section 60 subsection 5.
Yeah. The presiding officer shall transfer the result, including total number of accredited voters,
shall transfer
and the result of the ballot in a manner as
prescribed by INEC. In a manner as prescribed by INEC. So how does INEC prescribe the manner? You go to the regulations. So you see that it flows directly from the Electoral Act itself. Having said that, you go further into the Electoral Act. You now see that there are certain protocols to be observed, not just in the regulations, but also in the Electoral Act itself. In a manner to prescribe. What is the manner prescribed? You just read paragraph 38 of the guidance. That is part of the manner prescribed.
But that is rock solid. That cannot be.
You cannot fault it because it doesn't contradict the Electoral Act.
Yes.
It derives, it flows.
So the place of IREF is stamped here in the electoral law, isn't it?
In a manner prescribed, and the manner prescribed. No, you see, you're jumping the gun.
No. He says, look, Mr. Oluwale, he says, use the beavers. I mean, stemming from the section 38, the subsection 2 says, use the beavers to upload a scanned copy of the EC8A to the INEC result viewing portal as prescribed by the Commission. So there is actually
But read the previous.
It says electronically transmit
or transfer
the result of the polling unit direct to the collation system.
Collation system. And that's the mistake a lot of people make. Collation system is where you should transmit results to first. And then the IREV. People don't seem to get that. And
so does it mean that the IREV is not cast in stone?
I don't know.
So the collation, no, the point is
plain, simple.
I
don't know that's cast in stone, but it doesn't say so.
No, so you made reference. So electronically transmit or transfer the result of the polling unit direct to the collation system as prescribed by the Commission.
And then
collation system.
After you do that,
is the collation system a manual process?
Wait now, it's after you do that.
Yeah.
You just read it. Transmit or transfer.
Electronically.
Electronically, that's the point. Electronic transmit or transfer to the collation system. That's first place. Before it goes to IREF. Now read the second one. Without goes to
use
the IREF.
Use the beavers to upload a scanned copy of the EC8A to the IREF result viewing portal as prescribed.
That's after doing the first one. And people always just jump to conclusion, oh, it's just IREF. No. There's what they call the collation system. And my understanding of it, the collation system is probably the back end of the IREF. It should, it's like a mirror. It should replicate that. But first of all, take it to the collation system. And then later on go to the IREF. That's what the regulation says. It's not me making it up. You just read it. I'm happy you read it. So when people say, oh, I didn't see it in IREF, I didn't see the IREF, the law did not say transfer to IREF first. It's transfer to the collation system. After the collation system, then you take it to IREF. But I think the language used is mandatory, by the way. That's my own honest view. But the collation system is different from the IREF according to the regulations. Because if you look at disputes, for example, I think if you check, if you have time, your producer will check section 64 of the Act itself.
Electoral, 60 what?
64.
Yeah. which says, I mean, that's a
64, let's check
64.4. Okay.
Yes.
It said a collation officer or returning officer at an election shall collate and announce the result of an election subject to his or her verification and confirmation that the number of accredited voters stated on the collated result are correct and consistent with the number of accredited voters recorded and transmitted directly from polling units under Section 47 of this Act, and B, the votes stated on the collated result are correct and consistent with the votes or result recorded and transmitted directly from polling unit under Section 64 of this Act.
Correct. So there are two things there. First of all, accreditation figures. Accreditation figures have been entered into the manual result sheet. So you look at the manual result sheet. Does it tally? I think it's correct and consistent, the word used by the law. Correct, first of all, and consistent with that in the beaver. So you must physically examine the beavers to look at it. And then the second thing you do is now look at the scores. Party A, Party B, Party C, are they correct? Is total correct? Are they correct? And are they consistent with what has been electronically transmitted from the polling units?
So, I mean, this is where I would love us to anchor.
Okay.
Mr. Mahmood, in his petition for INEC, when he responded to his reply, says, quote, there was no collation system of the third respondent, which is INEC, to which polling unit results were required to be transmitted by the presiding officers. A prescribed mode of collation was manual collation of the various forms EC8A, EC8B, EC8C, EC8D, and EC8E in the presidential election, the electoral umpire. I mean,
can we pause and break it down?
Absolutely.
Well, read the first sentence.
It says that there was no collation system of the third respondent, which is INEC, to which polling unit results were required to be transmitted by the presiding officers.
No collation system, but now the tribunal will have to determine, in view of the law.
It now says the prescribed mode of collation was manual collation.
That was also, I find, very interesting. Prescribed mode is manual collation. Well, you just read that, and that's actually what it says. It didn't say you should collate electronically. There's nowhere in the law, nowhere in the guidelines you will see electronic. Go back to your 64.4. Go back to 64.4. Go back.
A collation officer or returning officer at an election shall collate and announce the result of an election subject to his or her verification and confirmation.
Verification and confirmation. That's what is required with it electronically transmitted. But quite rightly, collation is still now
manual.
Give me from this point, from that point,
EC8B, EC8C, and EC8D.
But before you start that process, you must go to the electronic ones and say, are these figures consistent? Yes. It doesn't say start collating from the beavers. It doesn't say start collating from the transmitted results. It says start collation. Before you start collation, look at this, and the figures are the same. Now you gather all the EC8As together and start. So in that sense, it's a manual process.
Interesting. INEC is spending several billions of naira on that. They've actually allocated, I can't remember, is it 3 billion or something?
I read it on social media, but I don't know whether that's an official statement of the commission. But yes, 3 billion naira for defending
its own petitions. And
legal expenses, not just the defense, not just the lawyers' fees, but the logistics of moving things around, of certification, all sorts of logistics associated with post-election litigation issues.
I mean, are you one of those who subscribe that the courts should televise these proceedings?
I have mixed, quite honestly, I have mixed feelings about it. You don't want to turn it to a circus, into a jamboree. Even in the US, where a lot of states allow televised issues, you find the O.J. Simpson matter, for example. That's one in recent memory, and the controversies arising from that. Some of the lawyers, some people were just playing to the gallery. Serious controversies about it. We've not really gotten over it. Marcia Clark, one of the major prosecutors, Eddie Cochran was one of the major defense people, and there was controversy about it. Kenya did it, and I think
presidential petition,
yes, I think Ghana did. We all watched that. It was interesting viewing in certain regards. People say for openness, it's open to the public. Probably for openness, maybe parts of it or the whole of it probably should be transmitted.
Interesting. But I mean, as a lawyer, I mean, this is just my own, I'm asking you for the sake of our viewers who need to understand also. I mean, you made reference to the case of Hope Uzodinma, and the prayers he went to court, he had a specific prayer that he asked the court to do, and he asked the court, and technically, a lot of people will argue, and I'd like you to let our viewers know how things work in terms of judiciary. I mean, it comes down at some point to how prolific, on how technically sound some of these lawyers present their cases, isn't it?
It depends a lot on that, the kind of case presented, the evidence presented, and the courts have to give judgment predicated on what they see before them in that particular petition.
Not on emotions.
Not on emotions. And I think there's a beautiful article in today's This Day, Legal, where some issues were discussed. It's justice according to law. So you must follow the law. You don't do it on emotions. You don't do it on what we see on social. I have seen a lot on social media, and it's so easy to be persuaded one way or the other. But some of those things will not stand the scrutiny of a trial. They will not stand the scrutiny of cross-examination and of evidence. You cannot tell, for example, that sometimes old videos they bring to you and you see on social media and you assume that it is relating to this election. For example, some are correct, some are not correct. Sometimes people are not willing to come to testify. Sometimes there's no time. If you don't front load their statements, for example, if you have not said you are bringing Mr. Ozi as a witness, it's very...
And they are time specific.
It's very time, it's 21 days. And that
very technical. I mean, so technical. All of these things are there. Interesting. And I see why the politicians also spend a lot of money getting the best of the lawyers. I see a long list of senior advocates of Nigeria. This is their time. I wish them the very best. Thank you so much, Mr. Oluwole Osazi. Always a pleasure having you around to speak on these issues. And I will really disturb you in the coming days because these things are prevalent and they are with us. Thank you so much indeed for your time.
Thank you for having me.
We're shifting gears, everyone, when we return from the break, and a lot of controversies also that we'll be digging into. After now, with my next guest. Stay with us, we'll be right back. So much, everyone, for staying with us. We'll be shifting focus now to discuss the intricacies of the National Assembly leadership politics and how it may impact on the overall political landscape in Nigeria. Where there are those who are now agitating that there should be a shift into the equation, the power shift in the National Assembly, stemming from how things are in the for the president-elect and the vice president-elect, and how that positioning and the regions where they come from will affect the Senate presidency, the deputy Senate presidency, and the speakership and the deputy speakership role. Earlier today, there were those who are clamoring and speaking about the issue of the National Assembly, the leadership politics, and how it should be zoned. Take a listen to them.
We call on the zoning of the President of the 10th Senate of the Federal Republic of Nigeria to the southeast geopolitical zone of the country, and by extension, the nomination and ratification of the most qualified ranking senator from the zone in the person of Senator Osita Izunaso. Izunaso also remains the oldest ranking senator from the southeast, having been elected to the Senate for the first time in 2007. As a socio-political association in Nigeria and a Category A support group of our great party, the All Progressive Congress, APC, it's incumbent on us to emphasize to the leadership of our party and the senators-elect that national cohesion is the greatest urgency of now, and that the zoning of the Senate presidency, which will consequentially position the remaining 3 legislative leadership seats, Deputy Senate President, Speaker of the House of Reps, and the Deputy Speaker across other zones, is the only true pathway to the discovery of the Nigeria spirit at amalgamation.
So there are those who are already pitching their tent to some of the candidates and the regions in which they want this to be zoned to. And new lawmakers, let me tell you, about 70% of the new senators in the 10th National Assembly are new. 30% are returning. So there is a very big turnover considering what is happening now in the 9th National Assembly and its membership and that of the 10th National Assembly. In fact, last week they gathered themselves at an event in Abuja where the new lawmakers are meeting and talking about what and how the leadership of the National Assembly should look like. Let's speak tonight with one of the new lawmakers. This time around, is a senator-elect from Kwara State and a member of the APC, Senator-elect Salihu Mustafa, who joins us virtually from London. Thank you so much, Senator-elect, for joining us tonight. Give us an understanding where we are seeing so much of clamor and so much of politicking about the 10th National Assembly politics. It's just going to be in June, so I'm seeing a lot of traction in the discourse.
Well, good evening, sure. Well, like you know, in politics, the earlier you start and the better your outcome. So if you see people who are networking now and who are making themselves available or, canvassing for the leadership, there's nothing wrong about it. I think the earlier the better they start. But the most important thing is, as a party, the APC can easily produce the leadership of the 10th Assembly in the Senate without networking or without advancing for support from other opposition parties. Because as it stands today, we are 57 in number. And 57 out of 109, you already have a simple majority. So the most important thing is for my party, the APC, to be able to organize and have a good understanding on how and where we want the leadership to be zoned to. And with that, I think we are home and dry. But in the event that you have so many interested parties, then that is where you will need the support of other opposition parties to produce a winner if there is no concrete understanding.
I mean, you are a former party leader in the APC. The onus is on your party. What is the kind of stories or what are the feelers that you are getting on the inside of your party? How serious is your party taking the politics of the leadership of the National Assembly?
Well, definitely, any serious party will take it very seriously to make sure there is no rancor, so as to have a stable and very progressing government, because we have a lot to do. We have promised Nigerians a lot, and we must be able to deliver on our dividends of democracy. So as a former party leader, when we find ourselves in situations like this, we try to mediate and we look for the best for the nation, not just for our individual selfish interests. And for me, my advice would be, by the time we get back from the festive period, I'm sure the party will be able to guide and advise. They might not be able to dictate, but they will only advise and guide us. And it's left for us as individual senators elect to look at, first and foremost, what is best for the country and the kind of leadership we want to enthrone and what we have for the nation.
I mean, do you think, Mr. Mustafa, do you think that zoning should be considered for the next National Assembly leadership?
Well, as an interested party, I might not give you an objective answer in that, because some people might look at it as maybe he's saying things that will favor him or his own candidate or his zone. But you see, when you look at it in politics, every party comes up with a strategy on how it suits its own agenda. Some other party might decide to say, look, we want to zone this to X, Y, Z, so as to have this balancing, or so as to give this sense of belonging to the other parts of the country. Some other party will say, look, it's politics. It is what you bring on the table that will determine what you go home with. So, like I said, for me, Nigeria first. Whatever we will do, let's have at the back of our mind of the kind of country we want Nigeria to be. and how we want to govern or how we want the electorate to perceive or to see us the next time we come out. So all these are based on individual strategy of the political party or the government of the day.
So, I mean, being a member of the leadership of the APC, and I know my next question is not something that is alien to you. There is nothing like, and I've read your party constitution, I've read out of the APC, I've read other political parties. There is no place in your party constitution that zoning is being stated or referenced at all. Does it mean that your party may not reference zoning in relation to the choice of the leadership of the 10th National Assembly?
Well, Sean, like I earlier explained, everything has to do with what the party or what the government of the day wants. And like I know, with our president-elect and the VP-elect, these are people who, from their body language, they've shown that they want a one, indivisible, united Nigeria. So we have to sit back and look at what will favor the APC as a party. Don't forget, we've just finished an election. We must be able to bring ourselves in an organized manner so as to be able to deliver on the promises of the campaign and to also look forward for the next election. Because whatever we do today will determine how we come out for our next election, the kind of support, and how we are going to, be received then. So for me, I think APC as a party, and by the time the government is installed and the 10th Assembly is inaugurated, we will definitely make sure we have something that will be befitting for the system of government we have today.
To give us an understanding, if you have almost 70% of new lawmakers, and I see that you are one of the conveners of that meeting, I see how you guys are organizing yourself. What are the feelings that the new lawmakers are having towards the 10th National Assembly leadership? And in fact, how that legislature is going to shape up?
Well, basically, we met last week in Abuja before I left. First and foremost was for us to get to know ourselves, get to exchange contacts, and have a platform where we can easily communicate, disseminate information amongst ourselves. More importantly, if you look at the pattern of the election we just finished, everybody who has won an election has won that election on certain criteria. One, hard work, goodwill, and nobody wants to throw away this. So the most important thing we were able to arrive at that day is that Nigeria first. Today, we've been elected, we're now senators-elect. By the grace of God, we'll be inaugurated. At that point in time, we will no longer be saying, I'm from this, I'm from that. Definitely, yes, all politics is local. We all have our constituency. But at that time, we will be referred to as senators of the Federal Republic of Nigeria. Do we want to have that business as usual, or we want to make a difference this time around? And I can assure you, after our meeting that day, if there was one thing all of us agreed on, is that we want to make sure we make a difference. We want to help to restore the name, that glory of the Senate. We want to restore that name back. And we want to make sure whatever we do, we put Nigeria first.
So you were in leadership of the APC at about the time that your party had issues trying to control how your elected lawmakers were going into the election in June of 2015 and in June of 2019. There was a very, very tumultuous period for your party at the time where it was difficult to be able to control how lawmakers voted on the floor, and external forces and external influence determined largely how things panned out. Would you say the party has learned its lesson? Now the onus is on your party to make its choice and to determine how you go forward.
Well, just to correct you a bit, I used to be the deputy national chairman of CPC, one of those that led the party into the merger. And ever since then, some of us were regarded as stakeholders in the board of trustees that was never sworn in. So, but in the 2015 drama, of course, I was in the thick and thin of everything. I saw it. At that time, the party believed that reasoning or they should allow them to make their choice. And if you remember then, the president made it very categorical that he had no preferred candidate. So as at the time, some of the leaders of the party came together to say, look, why don't we zone it this way? A lot of people had already shown their interest. People had worked very hard. And you see, the earlier, the better you are able to quickly shape on things. I mean, the better for everybody. If you allow people to go out, canvass, solicit for support, and at the 11th hour, you now want to, reel them into an agenda or a position, it might be too late by then. I think the party has learned its lesson, and I'm sure this time around things will be done better, and the necessary advice and caution will be given.
Do you have anyone you are rooting for?
Well, like I said, for me now, as an interested party, it will be difficult for me to, just like me asking you now, who is your preferred candidate?
I mean, I'm a journalist. I don't have one. I care less. I care less about how you guys go about it. My own is just to get information to the public. But you are the ones that are in the fray. So that's what I'm asking for. Because I've asked people on this program who have come on this platform who said they're rooting for one person, and they gave reasons for it. And I like to know, who are you rooting for? I know you are from the North Central. You are a new kid on the block in terms of those new lawmakers who are coming into the National Assembly. You must have your reason for rooting for who you are rooting for. So could you tell us?
Well, sure. To be very frank and honest, as the pro tem convener of the newly elected senators, we met that day and we're already putting up a criteria that will be presented to anybody who is interested to lead us. If you're able to fit into that criteria, we don't want to look at leadership from the emotional side or from sentiment. We want to look at it as something that befits Nigeria. So by the time you're able to fit into that criteria, then I think it will resolve most of this unnecessary bickering and emotional blackmail.
Mm-hmm. Their emotional blackmail. Because those who think that, I mean, for what we are saying, especially in the aftermath of the 2023 presidential election, an issue of zoning and religion there need to be a sensitive consideration of these factors. Don't you think so?
I agree with you, but like I said, every party will come out with its own strategy, the strategy that they believe will assist them in governing Nigeria and to, make policies and governance easy for them. So for me, as an APC member, I would want to be a loyal party member, and I would want to go by the caution and advice of the party. But like I said, in the event that interested parties are not willing to accept this advice or caution, then we will also, by then our criteria will be on the table. Anybody who thinks he deserves to be the leader, want to know what is your agenda, what do you have for the country, and how do you intend to promote good governance through legislative approach.
So your final thought on how these things will pan out? Those who say, look, things might be a bit different this time around, considering the fact that there might be a president-elect now that seems to be more political than perhaps President Buhari. So your members of your party have described the situation and the scenario that, look, you have a president-elect who is a politician to the core, and who might not be far away from, he won't look away from the politics and the thick and the thing of things, and you know, and the vice presidential elect who is also a member of the National Assembly. And the final thought tonight, what will be your word to them in the handling of this matter?
Well, my advice would be, first and foremost, like I said, let's not look at things from our own point of, or from our own interested point of view. Let's look at what fits or what will work for the country better. And let's look at how we can create the necessary and needed stability so as to have good governance. And the only way we can have this is to come out with a clear criteria of who we want and who fits into that criteria. That will give us the best result.
Salihu Mustafa, a senator-elect of the APC from Kwara State, thank you so much for your time tonight. I wish you and your colleagues the very best.
Thank you very much.
I appreciate it. Let's now look at some other scenarios playing out. Is this issue of zoning and the agitation now to Kogi State in north-central region of the country, where there's been growing agitation and very strong advocacy and clamor for a power shift to the Kogi West Senatorial District of the state ahead of the governorship election, which is being slated for November of this year. Tonight I have joining me the President General of the Okun Development Association, Mr. Femi Makikon. Thank you so much indeed for coming tonight.
Thank you very much, Sheil, for having me.
Thank you so much.
My pleasure.
Why now? I mean, I know about 4 years ago, this agitation also came up about an Okun person or a Kogi West person to be the governor of Kogi State. And I know that different group in Kogi State. But now, leaders of Kogi West, such as yourself and many others, are now standing up and speaking up about this. Why now?
Thank you very much, Sheil. The agitation didn't start in 2015. As a matter of fact, 2019, 4 years ago, it predated the 2015 election. As at that time, of course, like every other state in Nigeria, 3 senatorial districts. The East Senatorial District had had government non-interrupted for 16 years. Before then, there was a dispensation, so which East, they also managed.
The Kogi East are predominantly people of Igala?
Yes.
Okay.
They were in power as governor for 16 uninterrupted years, back to back. Mm-hmm. Before then, they also had some stint, before the military came in shortly. And then finally, we had this that we have enjoyed up
since 1999.
Yes. And in 2015, that trend will have continued. Of course, the Central and the West.
So if the late Audu
had not passed on,
yeah,
that trend will have continued.
He was an Igala man too.
He was an Igala man.
Okay.
And that will have given the East 27 years uninterrupted of governance. There is no God in his infinite mercy. May God bless his soul, give him eternal rest. The Central now had to take over.
Which is Governor Yahaya Bello.
Governor Yahaya Bello. Before then,
what stock is it from? It's from the Kogi Central.
Yes.
He's an Ibira man.
Yes.
Yeah. Which is another predominant ethnic group.
You know, the way we are structured,
yeah.
The East, by Nigerian population, has the highest population in Kogi, followed by...
The Central.
No, by the West.
The West.
And then the Central. Of course, some people will say the Central and the West. But when it comes to political voting patterns,
yeah,
in terms of number of wards, the East, followed by the West, and then followed by the West, and then by the Central. The two of us started working together. That's Central and West. Let's appeal to our brethren in the East. In their own self-enlightened interest, let's allow rotation to take place. Power shift as at that time was because it has been domiciled in that place for several years. Let it shift to this side. Now that it's shifted by divine intervention
to Central.
By the end of our current governor's tenure, we will have spent 8 years. If it doesn't shift to the west, what it means is one of two things. It's either it will be retained in the central, which will then give them another round of 8 years, meaning 16 years.
Or 4 years, as the case may be.
4 years, of course, we know the way these things work. 16 years. Why were we complaining about the East? If, because they spent 16 years, both of us worked together and said, let us shift it to the central or to the west. But God gave it to the central. It is now, we are not asking for it because we feel we are entitled to it. We are agitating for it because it is the right thing to do. It is the only fair thing. It is the just thing to do. If indeed we want to create that sense of belonging amongst all of us. There are states in Nigeria that have similar structure. A good example that I know very well is Niger State. But what they do, they make sure they rotate. Even senatorial, they rotate.
In North Central,
I'm sure you know a lot of... you know this thing more than myself because of the nature of your job.
Absolutely.
So you know the number of...
In the North Central region, that is very prevalent, and there's a lot of agitation, not only in Kogi State, about an issue of power shift, and it's become a major problem. So now, in this all of these years,
yes,
you've had a situation where someone from Kogi West had been deputy governor, at least about twice or so, isn't it?
Yes. You see, Sheung, with the highest respect, sense of respect for all of those people who go for deputy, you know it yourself. Some people have defined deputy governors as spare tire. If your car tire does not have a puncture, what do you do with the spare tire? Practically nothing. The deputy governor can only do as much as the governor allows him to do. And you know instances of governors and deputies that are not on the same page most times. And then what happens? Either they impeach or whatever. We are not asking for deputy governorship. We've had enough of it. Let another zone also try deputy governorship. As I said, we are not asking for it because we are entitled. We know we have competent people. In fact, in the First Republic, when it was still Northern Region, Southern Region, and the rest, Okun people provided the bulk of the people that worked in the Northern Region. As of today, Okun people are all over the world doing great things. I lived my life in the private sector. I know several entrepreneurs. Once they hear you are an Okun man, they praise God. Because of our attitude to work, the diligence we bring to the job, and the loyalty we demonstrate. So it's not about we don't have the candidates. We have them in abundance. But for fairness, let them put themselves in our position. If it doesn't go to the central, it will then go to the east. If they don't bring it to the west. If it goes to the east, already they have 16, 19 years, so to say. Add another 8 to it. You may then add another 8. And it could be going as far as to what we don't want to describe. So I think it is the interest of all of us, whether it is in the west, in the east, or in the central, for them to, in a way, agree that Okuns and Kogi West should produce the governor this time around. And I can tell you, if they give it a trial, 4 years, we put them in a position to be asking, why did we not do this years back?
I know, you're referring to Okun to refer to the Kogi West people. I know there are the Yagbas, there are the
Ijumus, the Bonos, the Owes.
Within the Kogi West.
Yes.
But, when I was speaking with some of the leaders of your group, you are apolitical. You don't belong to any political. Your association is apolitical. We
have members from all the parties in our association.
So we'll go on a break, and I'd like everyone to understand where you're coming from and the position that you are having ahead of, because most of the political parties are having their primaries in the next few days. And we'll go on a break, and when we come back, we'll look into what this means. A lot of people say the story of Kogi State is like microcosm of the macrocosm. I mean, it's a little story of the bigger picture of Nigeria. Yes. We'll be seeing how that plays out when we come back from this break. Stay with me, everyone. We'll be right back. Right on the program. So the conversation is about Kogi State, and there are those in the state, especially the Kogi West Senatorial District, where you have the likes of Tunde Ogbea, David Jemi Benwon, Shola Akomode. I mean, that's the senatorial district where you find these people come from, and the leaders in that region are asking that they've never had a shot at the governorship seat in Kogi State, and they want a power shift. So one of the leaders, the President General of the Kogi and the Okun Development Association, Mr. Femi Makikon, has been speaking with us right on the program. So, and I was asking earlier before we went on that break that your association is not talking about any political party, because I know there is the Honorable Abejide in ADC, who is from Kogi West. There is the Dino Melaye from Kogi West in PDP. There's Smart Adeyemi in the APC, and a host of them.
Yes.
And so these are sons of Kogi West. But how do you convince, for example, an Ibira man or an Igala man that really, because politics is about the numbers.
Yes.
So if you say you are deserving of having that seat, you need to be able to convince them by the numbers and what you're bringing to the table.
Right.
Because this is politics. This is not emotion.
This is politics. And the truth of it is, there's not a single one of the 3 senatorial districts that on its own deliver governor for Kogi State. You have to build bridges. Pattern with 1 or 2, eventually you deliver. We recognize that fact. If we have, up to this moment, been supportive of people from the East, people from the West, I know what we went through in 2019. The moment Governor Yahaya Bello came into office in 2015, we all celebrated it. We got to 2019, it was a tough challenge because people were feeling that, no, the West has had it, the Central has had it, let it go back to the East. And we went together and said, let this continue. Because in this state, if we don't allow the 3 components to have this sense of belonging, regardless of the amount of resources that we have, we will not make progress. And that's what we are suffering today. So in terms of the number, you see, if they put themselves in our own position, it will not be too difficult to get them persuaded. For instance, PDP, they have 3 candidates from our side. APC has 3 candidates from our side. The other parties you mentioned, ADC, Leke is the only one. AA, Niyi Ibrahimo is the only one. NNPP, only one, Felix Oni. When you put these 3, we don't have issues with their parties. The issues all these 3 are from our Kogi West. The ones we are appealing to, PDP and APC. If they can get it to that point where all the candidates come from our side, the rest is easy. Why did I say it is easy? All those people you mentioned, and the ones you did not mention, all of us will come together and make sure that you've seen the way things work. Even this last election, there were people in PDP that worked for the success of APC presidential candidate, and vice versa. The moment we get to that point, our goal for now, let's have all the candidates coming from our side. If that happens, of course, it will be very easy to then when we get to the general election, to make it work in our favor.
Mr. Makikon, so there are those who say, look, what does governor coming from you say, what does he do for a people? I mean, why not talk about competence, capacity, instead of thinking about this concept of let it come to our side, our local kind of idea that you are clamoring
for? Thank you very much. That's why I said it is not about our local. No, it is not entitlement. It is about what is fair, what is just, what will keep us together in peace. More than that is the fact that when you talk of competence, character, integrity, when you talk of all those ones, they reside in Okun before going to any other place. I can guarantee that. As I told one elderly man, he owns a chain of companies in this country. The day he got to know that I came from Okun, he grabbed me, old man, what's the issue? He had some Okun people working with him, and that of all the groups, those guys were the best, most reliable. So it's not a question of we don't have competence, we have all of it in large number, everywhere. This Kogi West we are talking about, Okun extends to Ekiti, extends to Kwara State. Big enough to form a state of its own. If we are a state of, won't we be talking of governors? Ekiti State, governor, any governor coming from Ekiti is an Ekiti man. So if we have Okun as a state, we won't be talking of rotation. So in terms of competence, we are not, nobody is questioning that at all.
You're not in shock of that.
Even the two senatorial districts, they are not questioning that.
But have they agreed, have the leaders, because I know there was a time that in fact the leaders, the highest traditional leader in Ebira land was consulted about this issue. I know there was a time also in Igala land, there was the highest traditional title holder in that place was also consulted. But has there been a unanimous or an agreement in Okun or the Kogi West area, and how you want to have a common front in appealing to the sensibilities and the leaders of the other regions of your state or other parts of your state to see that you achieve your aim and objective?
We have been doing that because we know that without that...
Is there a consensus? Have they agreed with you?
There are two levels. There are two levels. At the leadership level, one thing. But individual level. For instance, the leaders will say, yes, we agreed. But you see, have some individuals, you have done your own, it doesn't concern me. They will still come out and say they want to contest. It is both the two of them that we are addressing. The leadership, by and large, in principle, because we hold different meetings. Central, Kogi West, they meet. East, Kogi West, they meet on the same goal. So by and large, we are in agreement. But the challenge is, the moment they go to the primaries, we drop off because we don't have control over delegates. And the stories we are hearing today, in terms of which list, which is not the list, we don't know how far it will go. But we are pleading and appealing that those delegates should allow the same principles that we are talking about. For instance, how did the presidency come to the South? The northern governors agreed that if this country must continue to remain united, it's only fair that we allow the North, the South, to produce the governor. That same principle is what should come down to Kogi State and say, if we have had it for 16 years, 19 years, we have had it for 8 years, we complain about people who had it for 16 years. It's only fair that we allow the West to have a go at it. If the West has a go at it and they don't do well, you'll be justified to say, second term, don't even allow it. Not to talk of another round. But I can guarantee what that state is waiting for is somebody from the West.
In Kogi, in Benue State, for example, if you ask them, you have about the Sonsi and Sondi and, you know, the ethnic stock in Benue State and how this became a very major conversation of the leaders of the different associations in the state before the 2023 election. But in the real sense, you have said that your problem is APC and PDP. Have you reached out to the leaders of these parties?
We have.
And what are they telling you?
At the PDP level, we've been on it, for, as I said, not just today. For the past 2 years, I've been on the field, running around, along with some other eminent leaders, particularly those of them that are practicing politicians. I'm not a politician. If I am, I can't head this organization because it's an umbrella body for all politicians. and they have managed to reach a consensus on which direction they will go. At least the feedback we get. APC, we work together believing that come 2023, it will not be, there will be nothing to discuss. But along the line, the feelers we are getting is not very positive. And that is why all this coming out to appeal not only to Nigerians, not only to people from the East, but to even the power holders, that if they can influence it, which we know they can, they should influence it in such a way the state should continue to remain stable, peaceful, and in oneness.
Right.
So that those resources that we have, we can harness them. The candidates, there's no candidate they bring that is from Okun, because we have done our own homework too, as regards this candidate. Not one of them is short of minimum standard. But we are not even presenting minimum. We are going for the maximum. And they will get it there.
All right. Kogi State, North Central Nigeria, is one of the 3 states that will be holding governorship election on the 15th of November this year. Imo, Bayelsa, and Kogi State. And what Mr. Makiko has been talking about is not alien to our politics. We've seen it happen in fact, several parts of the North Central region. Benue, Kogi, Kwara, Plateau, I mean, several other parts of the country, even Nasarawa State. You see all of these politics on the inside the state play out. And I wish you and your fellow Kogi West people the very best.
Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Mr. Femi Makiko.
Thank you very much.
The President General of the Okun Development Association of Kogi State. Thank you
very much. Thank you very much.
Of course, we'll be monitoring and bringing to you stories around the primaries and who emerge the candidates of the different political parties in that state, as well as what is happening in several other, in the Bayelsa and Imo State situation. Thank you so much, everyone, for watching tonight. I'll see you tomorrow at 7 p.m. I'm sure Kimale. God bless Nigeria.